great friends, Mindy Strand. Mindy, you want to say hello?
Hey, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I think when I first met you, I was thinking about this last night. I was working across
like 6
town.
years ago.
Yes. And I think it was your aunt.
No, it's my mother.
Your mother that was moving here.
Yeah.
So I talked to you on the phone through that whole transaction, and I was like, I got to meet this lady in real life.
And CJC always like, you got to meet Steph, you got to meet Steph, you're going to like her.
Yeah.
Like,
he said the same thing to me. He's like, have you met Mindy? He's like, you got to meet Mindy. And JC Goff he had that talent. Like, he could see, the strengths in people that would make them work well together.
Yeah.
And like, hey, you've got a lot in common with this person. Let me put you in contact with them. And I think that was so cool about him.
Yeah, he was really good at that.
Yeah. So JC Goff was the owner and one of the owners and broker of Edge Realty, and he passed away a couple years ago. So he did a lot of introductions. A lot of the people that I know in Central Arkansas, I met through JC.
Me too. Because, when I went into real estate, that's where I've always been, and I didn't have anybody here. Like you said, my mom moved here, but other than that, I didn't have anyone. So I met everybody that way.
Right.
Which, quickly became like a family to me because everybody's far away.
Exactly.
And so, especially like with military life, people were always, we came here with other military couples, but they all left. And so it was nice to kind of have that sense of family and friends locally. And JC was a huge part of that. I mean, he was a huge part of that and my career. Because when I came in, I was like, I look back at it now, I'm like, I don't know how he didn't just go, oh my gosh. I've got this goofy accent, and I'm like, I'm here, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here.
And you know what? So you're from Wisconsin, right?
No, I'm from Michigan.
Michigan. Okay, I always get the mitten and the glove states confused.
Yeah.
So I will say though, like your accent, your Midwestern accent is
toned down.
Big time.
Big time.
Because the first time I ever talked to you on the phone, I was like, is this Mindy from Sheboygan?
And now I call home and they're like, you sound Southern. I'm like, what y'all talking about? But like,
you're saying y'all. And
I started saying y'all because I was at the commissary or somewhere on base, and somebody had said, okay, you guys have a good day. Where I'm from, we say you guys.
Yeah.
No big deal. Oh, it was a big deal. This guy freaked out, and he was like, did you hear that? He just called my wife a guy. And I'm like, I don't think they meant it like that. And he's like, this is a woman. I'm married to a woman. And it was this huge deal. And I thought,
right.
From this moment on, I'm going to say y'all because
exactly.
I don't want anybody to be offended.
Right. But seriously, in my head, guys is a gender neutral term that means you people.
Yeah.
So,
y'all, it's the same thing. The guys.
Exactly. So that is how progressive the Southern dialect is, because y'all is the perfect gender neutral term for a crowd.
Which is what we need.
That's right. So y'all.
So I just adopted that real quick. I'm like, look at me fitting in. I'm not going to fit in with everything. Like, I'm still always going to say pop. And,
yes.
I remember one time I was showing this house, and I said, that house kitty corner from here? And they said, you mean Caddy? I'm like, who's Caddy? I'm not Caddy. And they're like, no, it's Caddy corner. I'm like,
yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yes. We say Caddy corner, you say kitty corner.
We do.
Which brings me to a different thing, because my whole life, when I hear Caddy corner, I'm thinking caddy, as in Caddy, like a caddy that you carry your stuff in.
Yeah.
Apparently,
it's caddy.
It's catty. So all variations that I was thinking of are wrong. It's neither catty.
It's over there.
Right. So it's kit kat. Corner. Yeah.
Something.
Yes.
But it's like, when I moved here, them talking about buggies. where I'm from, like the buggies we have at the grocery store are what the Amish people ride in.
Yeah, that's like a horse drawn.
Yeah, like you mean the shopping cart?
Yeah.
But I hear it all the time, every time. I mean, I've been here 9 years now, and every time I still hear, "Oh, you want to grab a buggy?" I'm just like, just giggle.
Yeah,
that's cute.
So the town that I grew up in was like tourist. We had tourism was the biggest thing that kept that town going. So I worked at this restaurant during the summer, and I got to meet with a lot of different people from all over the world. The biggest thing that I figured out, like, and I was a teenager, so at this particular restaurant, we had homemade pie for desserts, and they were amazing. But so I would ask the people, "Are you guys ready for some pie?" And then they'd be like, "No thanks, we have enough pop."
That's right.
And I'm like, wait, I wasn't saying pop, I'm saying pie.
Like dessert.
And they're like, "You mean pop?" I'm like, "No, pie."
They probably thought it was so cute.
And then, that really got my wheels to turning, because I realized then the difference between any accent is just how you pronounce your vowels.
Whereas we really over pronunciate some things, like our O's, we really, pronunciate them
Exactly.
pretty strong.
Right. So
Whereas like Southern, it's more drawn out.
Very much.
So we talk, when I first would call people here, like, "Why do you talk so fast?" And I'm like, "I didn't think I was. Like, let me slow down."
Yeah. I had a friend, and her dad was, I think, from Afghanistan, and he was like, the Southern accent, he had lived in the United States for like 25 years, but he was like, the Southern accent is so hard to understand.
It is hard.
He's like, as a foreigner especially, because if English isn't your first language, and you think you have mastered English and you've gotten yourself there, and then you go to the South.
And then when I moved here, people would talk to me. That's something I loved about here is everybody was so friendly, and I missed that from, being from a small town. And I was like, but I couldn't understand half of what they said.
Right.
Trying so hard to listen to the words, and I was just missing like half the context. I'm like, I don't know what we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, this must be what it's like to move to Japan.
Oh, I would not survive.
I know.
Like English, I got that pretty down, but I don't know any other like foreign languages.
Yes, and especially like the Asian Mandarin languages where they used characters.
Yeah.
And everything is like a different brush stroke can completely change the meaning of the word.
Yeah. See, I used to do sign language, and I liked that because you could, it was a lot of facial expressions, and you could. But at the same point, like another language, I barely speak English. I could not, let alone write it. No, it'd be horribly hard.
Yeah, that would be really difficult. And Russian too. Because, like they have the different, it's like acrylic alphabet. So, I don't know. And they say that living in a foreign country and being exposed. So that is the fastest way to learn it.
That's true. So, my step grandma is from Germany, and she actually learned English by watching TV.
Really?
And she's been here for a long time. She still has a very strong accent. You only probably pick up about half, but I thought it was interesting. Like, she didn't go through all these classes. Like, she just got it from watching soap operas or something.
And that's really conversational. So it's, like they're using it in a real setting.
Yeah, and then you kind of try to figure it out. Maybe use some subtitles.
Like, oh my gosh, George is cheating on Cindy.
Right.
It just clicks with her.
Oh, I'm putting it together now. But it is, and I mean, it's interesting though, and it's a good. I just can't imagine going overseas and like just being a fish out of water and trying to learn all of that.
Right.
And it's easier, if you do it from a young age, but, and when my kids were little, we did sign language. So they picked up on that really easily, but I didn't know any other languages to teach them. So they probably don't even know any sign language anymore.
But don't you think like now that people have iPhones?
Oh, yeah.
Because Google Translate, have you ever used that?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I've had plenty of times when I'm at like job sites and
Yes.
they're like, hold on.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay.
And then it's like everybody's eyes light up because they understand,
that does
exactly.
make it a lot easier.
It does. I was trying to talk to some guys that were working on the house my mom and stepdad were building. And, I have a few Spanish words that I can speak, but we were not getting anywhere. And I was like, uno momento. And I pulled out my phone, and then we were dying laughing because at that point the guy was like, got it.
Does it translate pretty well?
Yes.
I can
and
see
you
mine
can
being
type
like,
in what you want to say, and then it'll speak it in the language that you've chosen.
I remember in high school, I took Spanish a couple years, and I think I mastered like school supplies. So I just thought, I'm going to put this to use. And so I'm in the local, we have Meijer, which is like Walmart, kind of. And I'm in the school supply, and I'm like trying to use it all, like, oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Like,
Papel.
I don't remember any of it now, but I just look back and I'm like, man, that's dorky.
I didn't call me a dork. So Everly's taking Spanish this year, but she did a little mission trip over the summer, and they went to I think it was Houston.
Yeah.
And so they had a lot of Hispanic speaking population down there with some of the kids. She was like, Mom, Spanish is very useful. So I was trying to explain to her, well, imagine taking Spanish where I grew up.
Right.
Because the stuff that I know, my accent is so wrong with it. It's like, hola, como estes? Muy bien.
What is this
Exactly.
accent?
So
anytime you just give your pie.
Right. Anytime I've ever tried to have that conversation, you can tell like these Spanish speaking people are trying not to laugh at me. Because like this hillbilly.
I had a friend, she spoke a lot of languages, and I remember at that time she was like, yeah, when you speak it, you sound like a little kid talking. Because like, I mean, it is kind of like kids, you teach them, how to form sentences.
Right. Have you ever heard somebody that's like not from the United States mimic the American accent?
Yes, it's great.
Oh, it's awesome. So I think when I was in high school, we had a German foreign exchange student.
So good.
And we were all in the library one day, and I can't even remember this guy's name. But they were like, do your American impression.
Everybody loved it.
Yes! We were like, that is so spot on. Talk like that all the time.
They do it to me too. Even down here, they'll be like, oh, like when they start getting on their Michigan accent, they put it a little more Canadian, but I'm like, it's pretty good. Yeah.
So how far north was your hometown?
Okay, so
I got to hear about all this. The snowmobiles.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we get out our map. This is Michigan.
Okay.
We're over here in the southwest corner. So I'm from a town named Pawpaw. So nice they named it twice. That's really what they say.
It's Pop?
It's Pawpaw. So P-A-W space P-A-W.
Okay.
And that's their slogan. So nice they named it twice. And it's we've got a winery there. So it's kind of a winery community.
Really?
Yeah. St. Julian is out of Pawpaw, Michigan. And so we've got farms, and we're not too far from South Haven, which is where the beach is. And when I moved here, everybody was like, they don't have beaches in Michigan.
So you're talking about like the Great Lakes.
Yes. So we're close to Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan, it's beautiful.
Yes.
And everybody's like, that's not a beach. I'm like, it's a beach. And I used to have a picture. I would carry it around and be like, look, I took this from the beach.
Yes.
And
you even have sand.
Yeah, definitely have sand. And everybody's like, when they hear I'm from Michigan, they're like, oh, you must be from Detroit. I'm like, actually, I'm closer to Chicago. Chicago's just across the lake. And I mean, you can't see it, but you don't have the salt water. You don't have sharks and all of that. But no, I mean, it's a good little spot. And so
I went to Chicago to see my cousins a few years ago. That was the first time I'd ever seen like a Great Lake in person.
It's great, right?
Yes. And I was like, this is a legit beach.
Yeah. And so I missed that because when we had gotten orders, when I left Michigan, we went to Scott, which is outside of St. Louis in Illinois. And I was like, it is so hot here. And there's no beaches. There's not really anywhere to swim. And then we got orders here, and I cried and I cried. I mean, probably a little dramatic, but I was like, it's going to be even hotter. If there's anywhere to swim, I'm probably going to get eaten by alligators. And I didn't know. I was just like, I had no idea what Arkansas was about. I was like, I'm just not going to make it there. And it is hot. I don't think I ask every year, like, at what point in life do you get used to this heat?
I don't think you ever do.
No, I think it's just not possible.
It is really hot. And I think people, you know, you hear, obviously, Florida or Arizona, Texas. Yeah, obviously, you know, those are hot states.
Yeah.
But you're not really thinking how swampy Arkansas is.
Because
it is hot.
You've got that breeze coming from the water in, like, Florida versus here. You're just kind of stuck in the middle of the humidity.
It is so humid.
That's awful.
Yes. Like, imagine if for those of you listening, if you've never been in a super humid like environment, it's just like, imagine never being able to feel clean for like 4 months out of the year.
You go outside and it just takes your breath away. You're like, oh.
I mean, it's like there's no point in trying to do your makeup or washing your hair, because as soon as you walk outside, you're going to be frizzy and sweaty. But now Scott would be right outside of St. Louis. That's quite a bit cooler.
Compared to here,
yes.
It was still quite a bit warmer than what I was used to in Michigan. Because, I mean, it was, you know, it's down there quite a ways. And and then we come here. Oh, man, I don't know what I'm getting into. Like, but I liked, St. Louis was, I'm not trying to say bad. It's just different than what I was used to. I'm used to this smaller town where I know, you know, everybody kind of knows each other. And then to move to outside of St. Louis, it was like culture shock. I'm not used to traffic and, you know, the big city life. And I was like, nobody's really friendly. I remember I was big pregnant and I was at the grocery store and I was like, excuse me, you know, trying to get by. And they like barely moved. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to fit through there. Like beach ball belly. And it just, so it was like, I didn't have that sense of home feeling. And then when we moved here, even going to the grocery store, everybody talked and everybody was so friendly. I was like, I love that.
Yes. I remember being pregnant
here. Yeah.
Like if I went to Walmart or the grocery store, you know, anybody, let me get that for you. You know, they would want to put the water on the buggy for me, the big water packs or the dog food bags.
And even when the kids were little, they'd come up and talk to them and tell me stories about when their kids were little. And I'm like, it was just nice. Like,
it is nice. And I think that freaks people out, though.
Some people,
I've had a lot of relocates from California, like the past 2 to 3 years.
For sure.
And so most people that left there were just looking for something different anyway. And they said, I'm going to be honest, we came looking for a different way of life, but it really shocked us.
It's a lot different.
When we were like, people are talking to us, and at first we're like, what do you want with me? You know?
And now but see, from somebody like me where I'm used to that, and that's just my personality, like I'm a social person and I'll talk to anybody, you know? And so it was just like a home feeling.
Blake's parents, you know, Blake's from South Carolina, and they moved here 7 years ago, and Blake's mom told me, she's like, people here will talk to you, and we're very friendly. And I mean, they're from a small town.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of it, I think us being a military, because we're so close to Little Rock Air Force Base, you've got so many different people from different walks of life.
Which is cool.
In different places, and they kind of embrace each other.
Yeah.
And like, because I remember when my brother was in the Army, he's from a super small town, but all the friends that he ended up making were like so completely different from how he grew up.
Yeah, but it's cool to hear different cultures. And, you know, just different ways. You know, I've had friends like that from all over the place. Like my friend that speaks, I mean, I don't know how many languages she speaks. She speaks a ton. Well, she's from the Philippines, and you know, it's just funny to hear. Even one time we were out driving and we pull up and in front of us is these cute little goats or something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so cute. At the same time, she's like, oh my gosh, that makes me hungry, and I'm like, what? But it's just such a culture difference. Like, we would talk about, car seats with kids, because our kids were born within 6 months of each other. She's like, we used to ride on the roof of this bus. And I'm like, yeah, it's way different.
It is way different.
We're not strapping the kids on top.
I know. And so I think that's kind of, because you and I are about the same age, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that our generation is unique about, because like our kids don't remember ever not having all of this technology, like the iPhones and the social media. We do.
Yeah.
And so like, and our parents and everybody before that grew up without it.
Right.
So I feel like we're kind of on the fence here.
Right. And that's the thing, to be honest, it kind of makes me nervous.
Me
like,
too.
Especially having little girls and just technology in general. Like, maybe because I'm not great with technology, but at the same point, you see how consuming it is. Like, kids, like we were talking about earlier, kids can get on and work a tablet from a young age, sometimes better than we can. Or
right. And you've seen this, I'm sure. Did you ever like show your daughters how to text? No, they just know how to do it.
Yeah. And my oldest was trying to convince me, I don't know, a couple years ago, I need to get a cell phone. And what do you need a cell phone for? You don't know anybody. Like, and she's like, well, I'll get good at using sentences and stuff and texting and typing. I'm like,
I like her.
Her
moxie there.
I like your effort, but I've got pen and paper. I think we figured it out. And what she would do is like try to text to talk, and she would talk or talk to text, and then she'd see the words pop up and be like, "Oh, okay, I wrote a sentence."
Mm-hmm.
Like, you did not write a sentence. You just spoke it like translator. But no, I mean, there's good things with technology. We saw that with COVID.
Exactly.
There was a lot of things that we could still do because we had technology. It's just, there's so much danger with it.
Right. Like, and I think especially girls, because I don't know if, there's a documentary out there, I think it's called The Social Experiment or something like that. And it talks about how Instagram in particular, the rate of suicide among young teen girls, and we're talking like 13 years old to 15.
Right.
It has, I can't tell you how many times that number has multiplied since the release of Instagram.
I believe that.
And so like our daughter that's still at home, because we have two daughters that are already adults, but she doesn't have Instagram. She does have a couple of the other social media apps, and those are bad enough.
Yeah. Because
even if you have somebody that is monitoring it and making sure everything's appropriate, there's no guarantee that something is not going to get inside her head and make her feel like she's not perfectly fine the way she is.
Right. And I mean, you even saw it a few years ago with like YouTube, where somebody was putting horrible messages in like the middle of little kid shows.
Yes.
And I mean, that just blows my mind.
It does mine too. Like, get a life.
Yeah. It's just something, I don't understand why people do it. Like the other day, the girls saw some Halloween bucket, and it's got a metal detector in the top, so when they put the candy in, they're like, you should get that for us. You're always worried about everything. I'm like,
that is pretty good. That's a good idea.
I'm like, wait a second though. Like, why would anybody even do that? Like,
what kind of psycho wants to prey on children?
And like, you don't even know if it worked or not. Like, it seems really messed up in the head.
It is very messed up. And those are the things, like, normal people like you and I, you don't ever really go to think about those dangers until you have had an experience of some kind, and then that makes you like super paranoid, because I'm the person that is, no, we are not trusting what that person says. He looks shady to me.
And see, I used to live in this bubble. Like, I didn't realize I lived in it, but I lived in this little bubble where everybody was good, and that stuff was just on TV. And, I can just remember.
I did too, Mindy.
It was crazy. I remember one time I was in a class, and they said, how often do you think vehicles get stolen? And I was like 1%. And they were like, do you really think that? I'm like, yeah, I think that's just TV stuff. And they're like, no, it's way higher than that. It happens all the time. I'm like,
yeah.
What? And then, I did social work for a while. And so that just burst my bubble. Like, I was just shocked. I'm like, I didn't think that these type of things happen.
Yes. And that is, I'm sure, the biggest eye-opener.
Yeah.
Because I've worked for some nonprofits as just a volunteer for some different organizations for children and women. And I think that is the biggest shock to everyone. Like when you start going through training or working cases and you see people in your own community and you realize these people go to school with my kids.
Yeah.
And it affects everyone.
It's just, and that's why, I'm not, it's probably not a great thing to admit, but I'm not good about watching the news because I'm like, it'll just put this fear in me. Like if I watched everything, I feel like I would just be like, we're never leaving the house.
Oh, Mindy, I have to like tell myself to step away from the news or step away from Twitter because I will get so. It's really bad because I'll sit there before I go to bed and I'll scroll through Twitter and that's like the black hole of bad news.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to get really freaked out about your
especially right before bed,
it's like if you want to feel like crap and everything is doomsday, open Twitter.
No. And the thing is, I do try to keep up on things just so I'm not completely in the dark. But then I'm like, what do I believe? Is this real? Is this real?
It's like that meme. Have you ever seen it? There's this meme, and it's a cat, and the cat's got like a tinfoil hat on. Okay, and then there's the circle arrows, and it says, "I wake up, there is a psyop. I wake up, there is a psyop." It's like every day. Do you feel like somebody's messing with us? Because I do.
I think I just live in this little blind, happy world, and I'm like, no, it's good, I hope.
So my mom is like that. My mom, the crazy thing about it is she's like one of the toughest ladies. She can do all kinds of difficult things. She's an RN. She's just a really hard-working person, but she has a very limited worldview about danger.
Yeah.
And so a few months ago, she's like, sis, we are going to Vintage Market Days. And I was like, no, we are not.
No?
It was at the state fairgrounds on Roosevelt.
So one time I was going to a listing appointment and I was talking to my teammate Nick. And he's like, okay, they keep an eye on me to make sure I'm safe.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, where are you at? And I'm like, well, I'm getting off Roosevelt right now. And it was like evening. He's like, no, you're not.
Evening?
Yeah. He's like, no, you're not. Turn around. And I'm like, what? And he's like, no, you're not going to be over there this evening. Just, it's not worth it. And I'm like, oh, you don't even know where it's at. He's like, no, listen to me.
We know where it's at.
And there's other times when I'm like, oh, I'm going to go show this house. Like I remember one time in like Pine Bluff. And I was like, no big deal. I know the client. It's great. And they're like, no, you're not going by yourself. And I'm like, I know her. She's great. And they're like, yeah, but you don't know the area.
Exactly.
You don't know where it is. And I'm like,
high crime areas, things can be crazy.
Yeah.
So I think, Skylar is 22 now, and I think she was like 4. Okay, so this tells you how long ago this was and how ridiculously naive I was. So we went to the state fair, which was on Roosevelt.
Which doesn't sound like a bad thing. Like, hey, we're going to the fair. Like,
yeah,
that
state fair.
Was a great time.
And this was like Luke Bryan had just come out. He was opening up for somebody else, and he was like a nobody. So there was literally like 10 people in the crowd. And it was really fun. So me and Skylar listened to Luke Bryan sing to his 12 people. We rode a couple rides, and then it was like 10 p.m. We're going to drive back home. It's like a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
We are going to leave the state fairgrounds. And this guy at the gate, like a security guard, he's like, ma'am, stop. And I'm like, what did I do? He was like, what do you think you're doing? I'm like, I'm going to my car. He's like, no, you're not. Wait, I'm going to get you an escort to walk you to your car.
Right.
And he's treating me like I'm about to step off into shark-infested waters.
Oh, gosh.
And then I've got my kid here with me.
Yeah.
Like, we're walking 3 blocks to my car.
Yeah.
And he made me wait so that we could get a security guard to walk us down there.
Oh.
And then I start thinking,
Maybe I should look into this.
Yeah, I turn on the news the next morning, and it's a very violent area. But see, our old neighbor he's worked for Little Rock Police Department for a long time, and he works in all of the violent crimes. So I feel like I kind of know too much.
Yeah.
And so that's like always weighing on my mind.
No,
because I went from being totally oblivious
Right.
to any danger to being hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm going to karate chop anybody that tries to come up and approach me.
Right.
Yeah, as if that would work against a gun or a knife.
Right.
But I'll try.
I definitely have that line where I'm like, sometimes I think I'm big, bad, tough girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's times where I'm like, nope, that could be danger. I'm not going to do that. Like,
yes.
I think it just depends on the scenario. Like, as far as real estate, I'm pretty good about being safe with that, you know.
And that is a very good thing to bring up, because you as a real estate agent, I mean, you're meeting with all kinds of people all over in very different settings.
Well, you know, right before I got into real estate is when Beverly Carter had gotten abducted and murdered. And so I can remember, like, going out and looking for her. I didn't know her, and I wasn't in real estate at the time. So then when I got into real estate, I was having a conversation with my dad, and he was like, that can be so dangerous. And I said, look, I promise you that I will be smart, and, you know, ultimately I want to come home to my kids. Nothing is worth me not coming home to my kids.
No.
And so I'm good with that as far as, like, who I meet, where I meet them. If they don't want to provide something to prove, like,
who they are, their identity, then then obviously that's not the client for you,
right? And that's okay, you know. But at the same point, I don't know when I walk into somewhere, you know. I may be with a client that I know and I, you know, is legit and they're trustworthy. Like, I don't have to worry, but it doesn't mean we don't walk into a situation.
Exactly.
So I had this dream the other night.
Oh my goodness.
I dream all the time.
I do too.
And I had this dream. I was showing some houses, and they were all like vacant houses. And I got to this one. I think it was a foreclosure or something. And there was all these German shepherds around. I'm like, that's weird. And then I go inside, and there's like cats and stuff in there. I'm like, no one is living here. Why are these animals all over? And I go, I don't have a good vibe about this. Let's go.
Mindy, you are such a realtor. You're dreaming about like herds of German shepherds and cats in a vacant property.
It gets worse. So then the client pulls down the attic ladder, and somebody from the attic goes, ow! And I'm like, there's squatters. We've got to get out. So we go to get out, and somebody like comes to the front door and corners us. I'm like, how am I going to get out of this? Like, I'm terrified of squatters because you don't know what state they're in, what desperation they're in. Like,
they have nothing to lose. They might try to scratch your eyes out.
It scares me. Like, and so I always tell people where I'm at. You know, even if I'm with people that I know, like, we don't know what we're going to walk into. And
we always tell realtors that too. Like, for your buyers, the people that you're showing property to, having them pre-approved is kind of a safeguard, because we have all of their identifying information should someone need to contact the FBI for a missing person.
Let's hope not.
But you're exactly right. Let's say you're showing property and there's a listing that has been vacant. You don't have any idea if someone's broken into it and is just living in the attic.
Yeah. I mean, there was one time I was showing a foreclosed property, and I was showing it to 3 different people. They were all investors together. And we went into a basement, which basements kind of get me excited sometimes, because in Michigan we always have basements. Yeah. And here I don't find them very often.
There's lots of options with a basement.
Yeah. So when I moved here, everybody was like, does that have a basement? Does that have a basement? And I'm like, ma'am, I don't know where you're from, but you're probably not going to find a basement.
The water table is too high here.
And I've realized here, when I find a basement, majority of the time it's not great.
It's going to be really mildewy.
I have stories for days on that. But so we go into this basement, and all of a sudden I can see somebody like in a closet, and I'm like, turn around, and I was like, we have to go. It's time to go. And, you know, I'm trying to be real discreet about it. And I've got 2 of the 3 investors with me, and I'm like, hey, Paul, we need to go. We're late for our next appointment. I'm like, deep inside, freaking out. I'm like, there's somebody in here. So we book it, and I'm like, I don't know where he's at. Like, and he was hiding in a closet. It was him, but I couldn't tell. I could just see somebody was in it. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, my adrenaline was rushing all day. I was like,
that's a good way to get pepper sprayed.
Yeah, mortified. Like,
yeah,
you're just so lucky I didn't shock you
seriously
with my tasers.
Right. Yeah, see, like, all of the people in my family and in my immediate surroundings, they're like, never scare me as a joke.
No.
Because I'll take it to the extreme.
Not going to work out for you.
It's like I have listened to way too many Dateline episodes. And
we do. I was going to do a podcast on, like, crime. Because we have heard lots of those.
However, it's always going to be a mom that finds herself in that situation, because it's always the moms like, I'm brave enough to wade off into it.
See, I've gotten pretty good about, like, not with my kids, but I'm pretty protective of them and pretty watching the dangers. But when I'm by myself, or like, oh, I'm fine. It's just I've gotten better about it, but at the same point, like with the kids, I'm pretty good about, nope, we're not going there. Nope, that's...
Yeah.
Or even when I drive, I noticed a huge difference when I was like a teenager, pre-mom, versus when I became a mom. It was like night and day. I can remember when I finally had my oldest, we had gone up to Michigan because my husband was deployed, and I had this new baby. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to stay here by myself. I'll go up to Michigan, show off the baby, be home for Christmas. And I can remember I was driving around one of the lakes, and it's icy and snow everywhere. And I was like, white knuckling, and I'm like, I've got precious cargo in here. And I thought, I need to get some stuff in my car so I can, like, bust a window if we go off into the lake, or I had a whole little kit, like, because I was so worried about it.
And you do, like, I remember, traveling with Skylar when she was a newborn, and you're like, I need blankets in case we get stranded somewhere, and I need to make a makeshift home.
Yes. I remember switching, just like night and day. I've been in a ton of accidents when I was younger. I blame the weather. Maybe it was my driving.
And it's like, when you're in your teens and early 20s, you're not even paying attention.
No.
I remember, like, how did I survive in that? I had a Honda, it was like a 92 Honda Accord with no backup cameras. No kind of sensors.
No.
Nothing. And I'm like, how did I make it out of that without really messing that car up?
Oh, I messed up a lot of cars.
Yeah.
I just always blame the weather. I'm like, oh, the roads were slick, or the rain, or...
So I bet it really... I know that you probably think, like, when we do have ice in this part of the country, you're probably like, you ridiculous freaks.
So when I first moved here, and they talked about it possibly snowing, and everything shut down, and I was like,
shelves are empty.
What is happening? I can remember when I was young, like back home, we had a really long driveway, and I can remember getting stuck multiple times, digging myself out, and then we get to the end where the plow would come through, and so there's always that hump at the end you had to try and get through. So I could hurry up and get to school on time. They just shut it all down here. I'm like, this is hilarious.
Yeah, because there won't even be, like, I don't even know if you could consider it a dusting.
No.
Sometimes it'll be like, you got 3 patches of sleet. And everybody's like, nope. Shut her down.
It was funny. One year we got a little bit of ice, and I was like, I'm going to check on all my vacant listings and make sure that, we don't have any busted pipes or something. So I'm driving around, and all of a sudden I stop at, like, the train track, and all of a sudden I feel somebody just run into me from behind, and I'm like, did I just get hit? No, I did not just get... Yeah, I guess I did. So I get out. It was one of my coworkers, and I'm like, man, did you just hit me? And so then another coworker drives by. I was like, what are you guys doing?
You're like, well, we're just having a party.
Like, apparently, like, we all go out when it's icy. And this one over here wants to just rear end me.
Yeah, but it's... I mean, I've talked, because I had cousins that were born in Arkansas, but they moved to Aurora, which is right outside Chicago.
Okay.
And so, you know, growing up or living up in that part
Right.
of the country, it's like, that's just normal. When it's cold outside, the winter months, you have snow.
Yeah.
It's just something to deal with.
Especially like where we're at, because in Chicago it's the same way, because you get that lake effect. And so, I mean,
With all the wind and...
and so, I mean, but we had a good time. Like when I was younger, we go sledding and snowmobiling and, you know, all of that. Now people are like, do you miss Michigan? I'm like, I miss the summer because it's not so hot and there's places to swim. But I do not miss driving in that.
I don't think that I would either, because it's like you can't take a breather. You have to be constantly vigilant or you're going to end up stuck.
Like when I moved here, I still had all my snowboarding equipment. And finally I was
snowboarded?
I did snowboard. I was in ski club
So
when
fun.
I was in high school. And first time I tried to ski, I was like, typical, this is just how I am. Like, I don't need to start in the bunny hill. I'm going to go on big hill. No, I just rolled the whole way down. I hit a pole, kind of swung around, and I was like, all right, I'm done skiing.
With your skis on?
Well, at one point I lost them along the fall. But then after that, I just started snowboarding. And but I moved, you know, and I brought all my snowboarding stuff with me. And finally one year I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm a mom now.
Yeah.
Like,
even unless you fly to like Utah.
Yeah, I'll rent something then. But good luck selling it here. I had it in the garage sale. People are like,
Mindy, you can put wheels on it and sometimes a skateboard.
That's a big skateboard.
Be like, look, kids.
I mean, the kids would have fun with it, but it's not something that I don't go back to Michigan anymore after that first year. No.
I mean, I would love to take a trip like to Colorado or Utah, go to one of the ski resorts.
Yeah.
But I just want to sit in front of the fireplace and drink hot chocolate while everybody else skis.
I mean, even if you skied, at that point you just rent stuff. Like traveling on a plane with my big snowboard equipment and stuff. No, I was like, I've got to move on past this point.
And now it's like you said, you have to pay so much to check equipment when you fly. You're better off just like rent it when you get there.
Just rent it.
Yeah.
Way easier. But I mean, it was just part of what we did. And now in the winter, like I remember one of my first Christmases here, we had no snow. We had some friends over and we had like a bonfire in the backyard. I'm like, this is the weirdest Christmas Eve ever.
And see, like, it is a very unusual thing for us to have a white Christmas. I can only think of a couple times in my life where we had snow on Christmas.
Yeah.
But remember, it wasn't last Christmas, but I think it was Christmas of 21.
Yeah.
We were grilling hamburgers Christmas Day.
Yeah.
It was 80 degrees outside.
It does not surprise me.
And we're like, welcome to Fort Lauderdale, apparently.
It's funny because, like, even talking about Halloween costumes, you know, Halloween's coming up.
Yeah.
I can remember as a kid, we bought Halloween costumes that were like
warm.
Not only that, but we bought like a couple extra sizes so that we could put our warm clothes or
under.
And so it's just funny, like.
And here you're like, I've got to plan like a hot weather Halloween costume just in case, you know, Mother Nature's not cooperating.
I feel like it rains every year.
Right. Because I want to get like all of these elaborate Halloween costumes where you have to have like, you know, the huge cluster of grapes that you're wearing. Like, how's that going to work when it's 90?
Yeah, it's too hot. I can't wear that.
Yeah.
No, it was always the opposite. I can remember having like this little witch costume and my snow clothes all underneath it, like just packed in there like a little marshmallow. Like, that was warm.
I know. Well, Mindy, thank you so much for being here today. You're like one of the best people to talk to. We do have a good time. I want you to come back. Maybe we can have you as a regular guest because I've been having a good time talking to people. So, and next time I would love to also have your daughters on and ask them a few questions. They're hysterical. Mindy she has the cutest redheaded little girls, and they are precious.
And you never know what they're gonna say.
You really don't, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, they would probably be entertaining. I'd probably be embarrassed.
I would love to have them on.
I've never held their personalities back. I just let them be who they are.
And you can tell, and that's a compliment.
Sometimes I'm like, oh no, just stop talking.
Yeah, I know. I remember those days when the kids were a little bit younger and you didn't know if they were gonna like use that filter or not.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.